Dawn bled slowly over the gallows, the rope swaying in the pale morning breeze like a lazy vulture's tail. Jonas Creed stood on the platform, hands bound, eyes locked on the far-off mountains as though trying to memorize their shape before the noose tightened. The boards beneath his boots groaned, and the crowd gathered below shuffled in the cold. Among them, May Calloway stood, tall-backed despite the round swell of her belly, watching with a stillness that made the murmuring around her sharper. Sheriff Abram Holt read out the charge, stealing sacks of flour and a salted ham from the mercantile. Murmurs rippled, some spitting thief and mountain trash. Jonas's mind drifted to a cold night in his cabin, wind gnawing through the chinks in the logs, his children pale with hunger, their small hands clutching his coat. Shame burned hotter than the fear of the rope. Near the back of the crowd, Etta and Caleb clung together, eyes red, too frightened to cry. May stepped forward, her voice steady though her breath trembled. She asked the sheriff for the right to speak before the sentence. Deputy Silas Rourke smirked, muttering about women meddling in men's business. May reminded them she knew hunger. Her husband had died the winter before, leaving her with a farm gone to weeds and a child on the way. The whispers sharpened, she's sweet on him. But May kept her eyes on Jonas. She told the sheriff the real theft was letting children starve in plain sight. Jonas felt a flicker of something, though he kept his eyes down. Sheriff Holt hesitated, torn between law and conscience. May offered a bargain. She would take Jonas and his children into her care until he repaid the debt through work. Protests rose from the crowd, warning it would set a dangerous precedent. May answered by naming the unpaid debts of the very men shouting loudest, debts they had settled with barter and favors instead of a rope. Rourke's jaw worked in anger, but Holt finally nodded. Jonas was released into May's custody under watch. He stepped down from the gallows, wrists unbound, but didn't meet May's eyes, pride and humiliation tangling inside him like thorn vines. They walked out of town, May ahead, Jonas following with the children. The road was lined with stairs sharp as rifle barrels. Jonas carried both children part way, silent but steady, shielding them from jeers. May offered him water from her canteen. He hesitated, then drank, their eyes meeting for just a breath. Her farm waited at the end of a rutted track. Fences leaning, fields bare, but the air smelled faintly of bread baking, the first warm scent Jonas had breathed in weeks. That night, May served stew and bread. Jonas waited until the children had eaten before taking a bite. She noticed his hands, scarred and weathered, resting gently on his son's hair. The quiet in the room was not comfort, but it was a truce. She told him she'd expect honest work starting at sunrise. He nodded, the smallest sign of dignity returning. Days passed. Jonas mended fences, hauled water, and worked without complaint. May tended the farm, slowed but not stopped by the weight she carried. Gossip from town reached them. Rourke was telling folks Jonas planned to rob May next. One evening, Jonas overheard Rourke and two others near the road, plotting to teach the mountain rat a lesson. He thought of leaving, but upstairs Etta and Caleb slept peacefully, and by the lamplight May's shadow moved slow and steady against the wall. At dawn, Rourke came with the men, accusing Jonas of stealing food from May's kitchen. Before Jonas could speak, May stepped outside with a basket of eggs and a loaf of bread, proof nothing was missing. The road was already filling with onlookers. May told them Jonas had repaid more than he took, through labor and honor. Rourke mocked her, but May stepped forward until she was inches from him, daring him to call her a liar. Sheriff Holt arrived, silent for a long moment before siding with May. He warned Rourke that false accusation was a dangerous crime in this territory. The crowd thinned, their whispers muted now. Jonas looked at May, not with thanks, but with the recognition of a man who had been truly seen for the first time in years. Weeks later, the farm began to show life again. Fence lines stood straight, the soil was turned, the chickens grew fat. Jonas stayed on, no longer a debtor, but a man building something new. May stood on the porch at dusk, one hand resting on her belly, watching Jonas teach Caleb how to set a fence post. Sometimes, mercy ain't soft, it's the steel that cuts the rope. And if you're lucky, you find the hands that don't just pull you down from the gallows, but set you on your feet again.